First and foremost, hi, hello, my name is Jose Cheche, he, him, his, fellowship class 2020. I'm so excited that you guys are here. So I'm gonna give up a presentation and we're gonna have our guest speaker, Graciela Guzmán, talk and answer some questions, and then we can discuss if you guys have any more questions. So we'll start, and I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. All right, can everybody see this window? Yes. Can I get a thumbs up? Cool. Okay, so welcome to the New Leaders Council Fellowship overview. Okay, so what does NLC? We're going to go through a brief agenda. Our goal is to help people radicalize their pursuit of justice. We are not just a skills training. We're about civic impact. We help young leaders shape change and co-create a future of love, community, discovery, and collective emergence. So, as I said, agenda overview of the NLC Fellowship experience and the application process, discussions with an alumnus, Graciela, thank you so much for being here, and a Q&A. So, NLC Fellows are passionate, entrepreneurial young people who come from all walks of life and are the bench of talent for the progressive movement. Unlike most leadership development organizations, NLC isn't a one-weekend boot camp, but rather a 6-month intensive learning environment and a lifetime of a lifetime commitment. So NLC creates a lasting infrastructure in communities, states, and nationally to support our fellows and alumni as they become agents of change. NLC provides our community members with opportunities to engage with and challenge current policymakers, to create blueprints to tackle current and future policy issues, and to support one another along their individual path to a more progressive political and cultural landscape. So we're a national organization. We have local chapters. We're one national 501c3 non-for-profit organization. We have 50 local chapters, each run by a volunteer board. So everybody who has come through and been part of the board or has engaged and stayed connected with the NLC has been through the sheer basis that they want to volunteer and give us their very valued time. Cool. So NLC Chicago, our mission and our values. As you can see, our goal is to help people radicalize their pursuit of justice, So one of our missions is to build collective power by communicating and strengthening bonds between diverse progressive leaders committed to equity, justice, and liberation. As you can see, our vision at NLC Chicago envisions a world where a new era of leaders emerge, joined by love, radicalizing adjacent, a common pursuit of human dignity, justice, and liberation, as I have stated before. Our values, we recognize that it's impactful. Progressive movements process is just as important as outcomes. With that in mind, we commit to 6 core values by which our chapter comports itself collectively and individually. And those are here below, which are equity, diversity, and inclusion, accountability, humanity over expediency, transparency, and entrepreneurialism. Okay, so the Institute experience. We have lead groups, we have the capstone project, we have the mentor pairing, and we have a team project. So once, if admitted into the NLC, these are the things that you would have. You would have a series of groups, you would have a project to complete, you would be paired up with a mentor, and then create a team project and a chapter fundraiser. So our cohort reflects the diversity of Chicago, typically range between 25 and 35. However, we have older and younger, many sector, many movements, many roles. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be between the ages of 25 to 35. If you are older, if you are younger, by all means apply. If you know people who are older, by all means also encourage them to apply. We're 10,000 alumni nationally, And in 2021, there were 872 2021 fellows across the whole country. 71% identified as Black, Indigenous, and or other person, people of color. 68% of those were women and gender nonconforming folks. 31% were LGBTQI folks. All of them are either running for elected office, managing campaigns, working in government, running not-for-profits, starting small businesses, or incorporating large corporations, large businesses into being more community-focused and community involved. So, frequently asked questions. So, what is the application and selection process like? So applications are due September 3rd at 9:59 p.m. Central Time. After that, we have interviews for people who advance in October, decisions in November, and the institute starts in January. So you're looking at a timeline from September all the way until November when decisions are made. So that's 3 months. The way that we compose selections is there's a selection team made up of NLC board members and past fellows. So our selection team seeks Chicago's best and boldest young progressives. We will hold about approximately 50 interviews and accept around 20 individuals for the fellowship. Applications are reviewed and scored blindly, so we won't know your name. We will try to make it as anonymous as possible. All personal information is removed from the applications, which are reviewed by a team of NLC alumni and scored on several different criteria to assess the applicant's abilities, experience, and personal story. There is a $30 application fee. Once accepted, there's a $200 seat deposit that you get returned after your successful completion of the fellowship. We have a pay it forward model. There are waivers that are available, and those are due September 1st. But I believe that the date to apply for them would be the August 28th. But I will have to check with you on that. So prospective fellows, something that you folks should know is that NLC actively recruits fellows from outside traditional power structures. So one of the things that we want to do is equip them with the skills necessary to become civic leaders in their communities and workplaces. We aren't looking for resumes from the best schools, most prestigious jobs, or more notable references. So we encourage those who have taken underprivileged or otherwise challenging paths to help co-create a more progressive future and ideal, to be an ideal applicant. So, if you're like, well, I didn't go to Harvard, I didn't go to Yale, there's nothing wrong with going to the schools. We're not looking for that necessarily, but we're also not going to exclude. But, the ideal applicant is somebody who has demonstrated progressive leadership and entrepreneurial skill in their community, whether in a professional or in a volunteer context. So, just so that you know, part of the monthly commitment, it's 2 days in person per month, and plus the time for the captain and a fundraiser. Currently, we still don't know if we're going to be doing this virtually or in person. We are hoping that by January we have more of a control on this pandemic, and hopefully, the Delta variant does not ruin those plans for us. Like many organizations across and many jobs, and I'm sure you folks have gone through it. We're going it, month by month, week by week, day by day. So how has NLC made an impact on alumni, right? The application consists of, just so you guys know, we're gonna talk about that right now, but just so before I forget, the application consists of a few short essay questions, demographic info, and a resume upload. I'm sure Gavin's gonna be sharing those links in the chat. We actually have the application so that you can see the questions, so that way you're prepared if you wanna take some time and write it out. Top scoring applicants will be invited for an interview. Okay, so alumni impact story. So this is Randall Solomon, founder of One Stock, One Future. He was an NLC Chicago class of 2016. So One Stock, One Future, part of it is that they believe in single stock combined with curriculum on financial literacy will positively impact the child's trajectory in life. Like our logo, a child's path in life will have its ups and downs similar to the stock market. That's just one alumni. Another alumni we have is Elena Valentine, CEO, Skills Scout, NLC Chicago class of 2015. Skill Scouts redefines the way that employers and job seekers meet by bringing the hiring process into the 21st century. Harish Patel, Director of Economic Security for Illinois, NLC Chicago, class of 2011. He also was the main leader behind Chicago Votes. Chicago Voice is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization building a more inclusive democracy by putting power in the hands of young Chicagoans. Other notable alumni that we have is Xavier Ramey, Juliana Pino Caraz, Carlos Ramirez Rosa, and Joanne Klonsky. Okay, so why NLC Chicago? We are at the center of the intersectional movement. So one of the amazing things about NLC as a national institution, and more focused Chicago, is that we are the driving chapter across the nation in labor, gender issue equity, criminal justice reform, LGBT equality, climate change, immigrant rights, refugee rights, economic innovation, economic equality, and healthcare. We are sort of, how you say, not for quote, but we're like the rebels, the radicals. So NLC Chicago is literally at the center, well, not literally because we have one right down south, but at the center of the national movement. And that is it. Thank you. Like I said, we'll be putting the application link inside, the nomination link inside, the application fee waiver and scholarship request as well on the chat. And right now we will be hearing from our superstar guest alumni, Graciela Guzmán.
Thank you so much, Cheche. So now, folks, we're gonna quickly move into a little interview with a very prestigious and esteemed alumna, Graciela Guzmán. Graciela was in my class. She's a friend and truly a wonderful part of our community and one of like the true cornerstones of our whole group. So I'm really excited to have you here, Graciela. Thanks for taking some time out of your night to be here with us.
Oh, thanks, Sam. And hi, everyone. I'm Graciela, she, hers, ella, and it's my pleasure to be in conversation with you all.
And my name is Gavin. Apologies, I didn't say that before. And my pronouns are he, him, his. Okay, Graciela, first off, how did you first hear about NLC?
Yeah, let me walk it back. So I had come to Chicago in 2012, right at the cusp of the Affordable Care Act getting started across the nation. And I'll be honest, for like 7 years, tunnel vision was just like deep in the work. Asked me to go enroll people next to taco trucks, I was there. Asked me to go find people at the rave, I was there. My point is that that's what I did for 7 years. And then in 2019, I remember it because it was winter. I was the only person in my office in this massive nonprofit, and I was uninspired. I was bored. I was like, what am I doing to contribute towards my trajectory? I'm about to turn 30. I was 29 and started researching what can I do to invest in myself? Because it felt like all I'd done in my career so far was invest beautifully in things that I cared about, but hadn't necessarily thought about what my 30s were going to bring me, about how I could potentially use my voice to be more disruptive for good, and what were the tools that I was going to need to do that. And so I started researching fellowships. I started Googling at work. And so this is me telling you I was doing company time to do that. But NLC came up in my search as the fellowship opportunity, as one of the many, right? But I think what distinguished NLC for me from other opportunities that I could have applied for in that year was specifically the progressive values. And I want to lean into that because I think for me, I've told people I've been fortunate. Every issue, every campaign I've ever fought for has been something that like sits in my belly, is something I'm proud and I will stand for when I pass away, you know? And so for me, I want to be a part of a community that is equally as invested in whatever their core issue is. And I think that's for me, one of the most beautiful things about the NLC community at large is I may not not know enough as I should about environmental justice. I may not know as much as I should about COVID response. I may not know as much as I should about economic opportunity, but I'm looking at people in this call even that know more than enough for me and for other community members and can help inform me and others about that process. And I know that they are so passionate that amongst us, we're a part of a broader kind of like universe that's just making things happen. And so that for me, that like progressive values, specifically being a part of the fellowship, was something that had been largely neglected in my 20s. I felt like I had to hide myself my entire career. Like I couldn't really be loud about my values, that I couldn't really tell people how progressive I was, that I couldn't put it out there because my employer would be like, not on company time, Graciela. And I really needed that space to really sharpen up what those values were for me, how that professionally meant that I was going to show up, how that might professionally mean that I was going to push on what status quo was to create a more comfortable space for people like me moving forward. So my point is, I saw all of that in even these conversations as in your shoes when I was exploring if NLC would be the community for me. As I was talking to other alum in my community that I didn't know were NLC that were like, yes, you should join this family and here's why. So point in, Google was the initial foundation, but the conversation and exploration around the values is really what kept me and got me to NLC.
And really appreciate that answer. You mentioned so many wonderful parts about our community, including, being boldly progressive and unapologetically, equitable in our approach to learning. You talked about building community and the reliance we have on one another for this co-creation of a curriculum and learning from one another. And this is kind of a wonderful segue into the next question here. When you heard about this and you did all this exploration, you're Googling on company time. Love that for you, by the way. What were the other things that really intrigued you about the fellowship itself? Like when you looked at the actual curriculum, was it the community specifically? Was it the unapologetic progressive nature of the work, or was it something else?
Yeah, I think two bits. I remember looking at the list of alumni, just broadly the board, who was even in that fellowship year, and being like, these are the people that I'm going to continue reading, seeing, being in circles with for the rest of my Chicago career. So just knowing that, I know a lot of fellowships will talk about like the network, but it really is your community. It is like the faces that you will continue to walk in and see for the rest of the time that you're in Chicago. And I hope Chicago is lucky to have all of us for as long as it deserves us, because it doesn't deserve us right now. And I think that's indicative of the amount of work that we need to continue to put in and do, but that we're in good community that's doing it. Right. So for me, like that community piece is really significant just because we come from so many different walks of life. Like just even thinking about my cohort year, there were folks that were deeply policy, folks in academia, folks that were like deep in the trenches of like grassroots organizing, and just knowing that all of these vantage points were going to come together even in my cohort year. It was really important. One. But I think the other bit too is, to put it real, we're all busy people, right? And I think fellowships, they're beautiful things. I know for some like me, my schedule, there's 3 places I could be in any given moment, including my fellowship year. And at the end of the day, knowing that NLC was investing so heavily in a curriculum that was intentional to bring me closer to the people in my cohort, that was intentional about thinking about what are the pieces that I needed to galvanize me to the next step. What is the introspection that I need? Honestly, that NLC cohort time was the gift of me to me. It was the structured time where I could really think about the projects that I basically launched at the end of 2019 that galvanized me leaving my job and hopping onto a campaign that's been successful now for 2 years. So I think for me, like that combination of like really important, significant partnerships, and I promise you, people that are going to change your life in significant ways, really intentional curriculum that I think actually does have the potential to teach us all things that we haven't thought about, but more importantly, to create the space that we need to think about as leaders, or from whatever vantage point you want to operate, what is the next step for you? That is a gift that we don't often get in our lives, but the curriculum is so structured that it allows for that meaningfully. So I say that for some of us that are on the fence about like, do I really want to do this a weekend, a month? Yes, it is absolutely like the best gift that I gave myself back in 2019. And I'm still seeing the dividends of that in the community and in the job trajectory because of the process that I underwent with the curriculum.
Thank you so much. You've touched on this already throughout your answers, and beautifully so. I'm wondering, from this experience that you had with NLC, from the curriculum, from the community building, from the learning environment that you were part of, and then from the alumni environment as well, what have you taken from the fellowship and applied to your career concretely? Whether it was in your advocacy work or even just personally in the inspiration, to leave your previous role. What other learnings, teachings, and kind of thought partnership led you to advance your own career or change things in your personal life?
Yeah, I think a lot of the introspection in my NLC year, I think one of the beautiful things about getting to be in community during your cohort year is that in some ways my peers saw me better than I saw myself. They could reflect a lot of the gifts and a lot of the clarity of my thoughts and like things that I had started thinking about and help me sharpen them. So for example, I think up until this job change, I had really been managing campaigns. Again, they mattered a lot to me, but they didn't necessarily come from a place of personal investment, if that makes sense. And I'd been scared to do that because I kept asking myself with the majority of my 20s, like, am I really in the right seat? Like, am I the right person for this? And I think the NLC experience really gave me the confidence to know that my voice was needed in the healthcare immigration space, and to really be confident and to really stop second guessing a lot of that. And I think to also give myself the time to think about like, what is my North Star here? And if I actually gave myself the time to walk it back and think about who do I need to connect? What is the policy options that I need to explore? What do I need to bring to the table that I could make it happen? And so a lot of the policy arc at Healthy Illinois, which is the campaign that I'm on to expand healthcare for undocumented people in our state, started getting dreamed up during my NLC year. And it lived in the personal experiences of my family. We're a mixed status family. My grandfather and my parents were undocumented. I was born in the States, but a lot of that had honestly been sitting in my belly for 20 years. Kind of like unsat with, but NLC really taught me like there's an immediacy in this. I have the tools if I really lean into it, and more importantly, if I start connecting with players like this NLC community to like bring some of these options to table. So I left my job right after the NLC cohort year in 2019, hopped into Healthy Illinois like within a month of that. And then we've gone on to win now healthcare for undocumented older adults 55 and over in the last 18 months. And I think a lot of that really comes again from community that really instilled the confidence about me and my skills. I think a lot of the specific skills building that happened as a part of NLC, but also just this like, I think it made me bold in ways I didn't know I could be bold. Like I was ashamed and somewhat like, quieted in previous past environments. I was always called like stubborn, disruptive with no purpose, but I actually learned that that's a core part of my identity for good, and that I could learn to use it if I sharpened that tool. And NLC was kind of like the thing that helped me sharpen it to the point that it's extremely effective now. So point is, NLC was like the vehicle that really allowed me to like dream big, but also dream concretely, and also know that there was going to be a community that was going to back me up when I was like, yo, I'm getting opposition from this big player. Somebody was like, I know them, I'm going to call them for you. Beautiful, let's go. So there's some really concrete relationships, but there's also some really concrete skills that come from the opportunity that I was blessed with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. So you are clearly so busy, right? You have these massive advocacy campaigns going on. And I know you personally, I know that you are running around, you're involved in XYZ, you are doing, marathon training, you're just in your personal life, so much going on, and you're doing all this incredible work across the state. What today made you want to come back and still be involved? What brings you back to the community, after all this? You've already made all these friendships, you have your group, but why are you here today? What brings you back?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful question, and I'll answer it actually. Like this morning, I was speaking with one of our community members on our campaign who was telling me, I asked her, I'm like, why are you sharing testimony with me? And she was really simple. She was like, look, think about each one of us as a necklace. We're interconnected by the chains of what's going on around us and what we do. And I depend on you and you depend on me. And that's really how I feel about the NLC community at large, is when one of us wins, we all win. But it really, when I think about Chicago and the ecosystem of what we do, it benefits from having an NLC, from having a disruptive voice in every single level of government and every single level of nonprofit, of organizing. You need someone that's gonna shake it up and make things happen. So the more that we can grow this community of earth shakers, movers, however you want to consider yourself, because ultimately I think the fact that you're even exploring signifies that that's in your heart. We need more of us in every single space in order to do some real shit, period, right? So I think for me that investment in, we have to cultivate time and space for people like us all around. And the more that we can continue these conversations and continue finding people and really being like, come, like I promise you, this community is going to be great. That's why I believe in investing the time, because someone believed in investing in me. And I feel like I want to make sure that I'm investing in this community so that we can continue seeing that larger fruition of a better Chicago, but a better world. And that's going to happen in community.
I couldn't think of a better place to close this section. Graciela, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your insight, your experience with all of us. I mean, I've learned a lot. I'm sure that everybody here on the line has learned a lot too.